Hi, I'm Marty the OT Guy. How did I get started in this? Well, I started off in the late 1980s, learning electronics and some computer engineering, and moved into industrial electrical. And while I was doing some installation projects in a large manufacturing plant, I discovered this thing which we used to call industrial automation, or we now call operational technology, and fell in love with it. And it seemed to me to be the perfect combination of the electrical, the electronics, the computer engineering, programming, everything all in one. And that launched me on a 20-year career as an OT engineer, designing, installing, maintaining, upgrading projects and installations across a wide variety of industries here in New Zealand. And towards the end of that, I managed to get myself involved with OT cybersecurity, and yeah, here I am. Managed to join Nozomi from the customer side. Come across and join Nozomi to share my experience and my my understanding of things with customers. So my introduction to Nozomi was working for one of New Zealand's larger electricity generation and retail companies. And I was responsible for the operational technology team, so the operational excellence around our OT, but also the cybersecurity program, so the security program. And we needed, the first step we had to do in security was understand our assets. We needed to know what we had, where it was, what it was doing. And we looked at it and went, 48 sites spread across our country. I did some estimations and worked out that it was going to take a year's worth of effort for two men, travel, accommodation, airfares, all those things, to go through every location that we had from north to south and manually capture the assets that we had. And as anyone would realize, when you do that, there's going to be a degree of error in that sort of operation. So we had to find a better way. I did some research. I came up with a number of options, and we eventually chose to go with the Nozomi platform. Now, when I estimated the effort and financial cost of manually creating that asset register, it came in around $500,000 New Zealand dollars, give or take. And when we rolled the Nozomi solution, we got these great boxes. We clipped them on the DIN rail and plugged everything in, turned it on, and came back the next day and found that we had an 80% or 85, better than 80% accurate asset register right there in front of us in less than 24 hours. So the difference in value there, we had an investment of some tens of thousands of dollars in our Nozomi equipment, compared to the potential or the possible expense of nearly $500,000 to do it manually. That return on investment, which was demonstrated to management, that was the winning ticket. That was what made me fall in love with Nozomi. So if you're an IT person or IT security person, and you're starting to work with operational technology engineers, or guys like me, guys with a background in overalls and hard hats and steel cap boots and safety boots, if you're just getting into that environment, the best thing you can do is get yourself overalls, hard hat, safety glasses, steel cap boots, and carry the lunchbox and the laptop and the toolbox, if he has it, for the operational technology engineer, and carry it around for a week, follow that guy around and understand what his job does. And that will help you appreciate part of the difference. The other thing to realize is, in an IT space, maybe the worst thing that could go wrong is someone does something and deletes a database, and you have business interruption, and all those restoration processes start to happen. That might be the worst thing that happens. you lose a data center. I don't know. It's that kind of thing. But generally speaking, no one is injured. Data is lost and feelings are hurt and things like that, but no one is physically injured. You get into an OT space and you make a mistake, it has the potential to cause physical harm to people, or worse would be someone loses a life because of something that happens. So we also have to consider, in the world we live in now, we pay a lot of attention to environmental protection and environmental safety. And we have to consider things such as, what if I made a mistake, based on a true story, not my own doing, but based on a true story. What if I made a mistake that discharged 500,000 litres of milk into a river? The effect from that, the effect that would have on the environment, plants and fish and things, and the potential legal consequences that result from that, could be very different between IT and OT, those two effects. And I think if you're an IT person coming into the space, it's understanding those differences and appreciating those differences. Okay, so war story. So this particular example is something that I did during commissioning of a machine in a timber processing plant. And it's not directly cyber security related. However, it would be pretty easy to cause this with a cyber attack. So we're commissioning a large machine in the sawmill, and this machine processes, it's called a secondary processing, or secondary cut down saw. And so you take a log and you cut the sides off, and what you get's roughly rectangular. In this case, sort of 12 to 18 inches wide by the height of my head, sort of say 8 inches, 6 to 8 inches thick, let's say, and around 6 meters or near enough to 20 feet long, these saws. And we're running them through this saw, this machine, and log goes in and separate boards come out. That's the general idea. So we're running this machine, and the sawmill operator said to me, it needs to be faster. You need to make it faster. I think we can lift that rear hold down roller a quarter of a second earlier. And he'd been down beside the machine with a stopwatch, watching and timing. And yeah, he thought we could lift it a quarter second earlier. I said, you really want to try that? He said, yeah, I really want to try that. So we did. So what happens, the log enters the machine, the front hold down roll comes down and presses as the log engages with the saws. And then there's a rear one. So as the log is just coming out of the saw, the rear hold down roll is meant to hang on until the log is clear of the saw. Well, a quarter of a second was maybe a little wrong. So what happened was the log went into the machine, front hold down roll came down, saws got cutting, back hold down roll came down, everything's running nice. Time comes for the rear roll to lift, and when it lifted the quarter second earlier, the log was still engaged with the saws. So the saws picked that log up and threw it out the back of the machine. So then we had a 20-foot long piece of timber, 12 to 18 inches wide, 6 to 8 inches thick, flying at 6 feet above the ground at head height, straight out the back of the machine, off the conveyor, across the mill, and it punched a hole in the mill wall and landed in the yard outside. So I remember sitting on the controls of this machine and looking at the owner and going, well, we probably should change that back. And reflecting on it over the years, as I learned more about cybersecurity, I think about that situation, and that whole thing was caused by changing one memory address in the PLC by just reducing it by a quarter of a second. And you look at that, the more you understand, once you understand how OT cybersecurity works and what type of attacks are possible, that is exactly the kind of thing that can happen. You can change one number in a PLC and cause a result such as a 20-foot long log flying across a sawmill. We were very fortunate that day that no one was walking through that area at the time. The injuries would have been life-threatening at best. But what I'm hoping with this with this series of videos is we can share some insights about how organizations and engineers or people might improve cybersecurity capability and maturity. I think that's important. I'm hoping that as people watch these videos, questions or comments, feedback will come back, that we can adjust our course and we can answer specific questions or share more information. And I'm hoping generally to lift the understanding and ability across OT cybersecurity in general. And maybe even if we're really, really careful about this and we're really good at how we do it, we can bring OT people and IT people together and help bridge that ravine that exists in so many organizations.